In the heart of modern-day Central Park, Seneca Village once stood, a symbol of resilience and hope for foundational Black Americans in post-slavery New York. Established in 1825, 2 years before New York fully abolished slavery, Seneca Village offered unprecedented freedoms. It boasted over 50 homes, churches, and a school, empowering Black New Yorkers with property ownership and voting rights. In 1857, Seneca Village met a tragic fate. It was demolished under eminent domain for Central Park, eliminating a beacon of Black independence. Today, rediscovering Seneca Village confronts us with the echoes of historical injustices. Thank you.
State required African American men to own at least $250 in property and hold residency for at least 3 years to be able to vote. Slavery officially ended in New York in 1827. That was 36 years before President Lincoln signed the Emancipation Proclamation. Of the 100 Black New Yorkers who were eligible to vote in 1845, 10 lived in Seneca Village.
Like a lot of property owners in this period of the 19th century up here, people owned large tracts of land. It was mostly farmland up here. And when the city started developing, people started dividing up their property into lots for sale. We don't totally know exactly how African Americans specifically ended up buying property here, other than that they were initially interested because they were looking for space for burial. And it seems that they mostly bought property from one owner, and his name was John Whitehead.
Andrew Williams has become one of the most well-known residents of Seneca Village. Williams was a shoe shiner and at age 25 was one of the first people to purchase property. In 1825, he purchased 3 lots from Whitehead for $125.
Researchers were able to trace his family. After they left Seneca Village, they were able to take the money they made from their buyout to buy property in Queens.
Another well-known resident was William Wilson.
He had a large family. I think he had about 7 children and a wife, and he was the sexton for the church. So he lived next door. He helped take care of the church and the grounds. He lived right here in a 3-story house, and they were able to find the foundation of the house and also a lot of artifacts associated with the family.
Census records show that residents were employed, with Blacks typically working as laborers in service jobs. Although slavery ended in New York State in 1827, people of African ancestry continued to experience racism and discrimination. Residents of Seneca Village found refuge and relief away from downtown.
When I think about why someone would have moved up here from downtown, I think there was, of course, this need to escape from the pervasive racism that people faced downtown. There was an opportunity to buy property because it was less expensive. And then I also think about how it must have just been a more beautiful and healthy place to live and raise a family and maybe again, build a community, which is what happened.
But the residents' long hopes of living and building a thriving community for generations was short-lived.
In 1853, the city decided to build what we now know as Central Park. And this was a really big deal for the time. No one had ever made a park that was this large. No one had ever decided to take all of this land away from the real estate market to create a public space. But there were a lot of people living on this land.
In 1855, the New York State Census reported approximately 264 people living in the village. Nearly half of the black residents owned homes. To make room for the new park, the city forced all of the residents to leave through the process of eminent domain, which allows states the right to take private land for public use. Construction for Central Park began in 1858.
As part of that process, they have to give compensation to the landowners. So what that meant is that everyone living here was displaced and it had to leave. A lot of the residents were not happy with how the city valued their property and their land. Andrew Williams was one of several landowners in Seneca Village and throughout this park site who essentially wrote letters of protest to the city saying, you know, this is what you valued my land, but actually based on what I purchased it at 25 years ago or whatever, and how it should have appreciated and what's on here, I think it should be valued higher.
In 1998, the Seneca Village project was created to learn more about the community, land, and the people who live there. The site is home to some of the most recognizable landscapes, including Summit Rock, which is the highest point in the park. It also included a natural spring called Tanner Spring, which was believed to have been a principal water source for the village and its residents.
So this area right here is where archaeologists did some of the excavations that discovered a lot of traces of Seneca Village. So they found, traces of pottery and candlesticks. They even found a child's shoe, a pencil. So all of these really kind of meaningful artifacts that really connect us more to the people who lived here. Whenever you do archaeology in New York, if there is something in the ground, usually it ends up staying in the ground and then gets covered up. But they did take all of the artifacts and process them, which means they were cleaned and inventoried, and those are now stored in the city's archaeological repository.
In recent years, the Central Park Conservancy has been working to uncover the history of Seneca Village. Researchers have not found any photographs of the village or of the people who live there, but archaeological excavations were conducted in 2011. Artifacts found at the site have been able to give researchers and historians a clearer picture of the types of families who lived in Seneca Village. Signs erected by the Central Park Conservancy help to commemorate and tell the story of the village and its vibrant community.
We don't have any writing or documents that really explicitly tell us why people moved up here. But one of the things we've thought about a lot is what this area was like in the 19th century. I think it's hard sometimes to imagine that all around us there were no buildings. It was, still pretty rural. And actually what you see